2016 was a great year for gaming overall, with gems like Overwatch, The Witness, Doom, and Uncharted 4, all of which you're probably sick and tired of hearing praise for by now. Let's take this time to shine the limelight on gaming's newest unsung zeros, the modern-day ETs and Sonic 2006s that will surely give angry video game reviewers on YouTube material for years to come. Hi, I'm Kyle Stover with the Leaderboard, and we're here to count down the worst games of 2016, so grab yourself a barf bag and let's get this over with. Number 9, No Man's Sky. Before it graced us with its release, Hello Games said No Man's Sky would be a great many things. A galaxy filled with so many planets to visit that would be impossible for us to visit them all, new and incredible forms of alien life to discover, the ability to participate in randomly generated intergalactic wars. I mean, their promises were endless. Unfortunately, the goal of No Man's Sky is incredibly vague. Reach the center of the galaxy, whatever that means. When the game released, players discovered that what was found at the center of the galaxy was deemed so disappointing. It's one of the few things in life you would want to be spoiled about. No Man's Sky was riddled with issues and criticisms upon release. It had huge barren worlds with not much to see or do, dull and repetitive gameplay, wonky AI behavior, numerous glitches, and frequent game crashes. The game was severely lacking in features that were either previously showcased or spoken about before release. So much so that Hello Games was under legal investigation for false advertising. The reception of the game was so poor, Steam and Sony received more refunds for the game than they could handle. To make matters worse, Hello Games went completely dark for several months after they discovered they had a bomb on their hands. But before pulling their Houdini, they swore they were working on making No Man's Sky the game they promised. They re-emerged in November of 2016 with a huge update for No Man's Sky, which many claimed has enhanced the game. With their promise of more updates to come, here's hoping that Hello Games can transform No Man's Sky from one of the worst games of 2016 to one of the best games of all time. Number 8, Mighty Number 9. Despite having a legacy that rivals that of Pac-Man, Mario, and Sonic, Mega Man's appearances on the gaming scene have been relatively light in recent years. Fans have been begging Capcom for a new entry for a little over half of a decade to no avail. Enter Keiji Inafune, a key player behind the original Mega Man titles who left Capcom back in 2010 to pursue new and exciting interests. And by new and exciting, of course, we mean just taking Mega Man, recoloring it to make it look like a Sonic fan fiction character, and calling it Mighty Number 9. The game started out as a Kickstarter campaign in 2013 that originally called for a budget of $900,000 and eventually wound up receiving a whopping $4 million. The project was delayed quite a bit with communications between the developers and the backers being both shady and somewhat minimal. 3 years later, the game was finally released to the public. Was it worth the wait? To put it simply, you'd be better off clearing the dust from your NES than playing the original Mega Man. The final game was less of a spiritual successor to Mega Man and more like one of those cheaply made Chinese knockoff toys you find in the dollar store. For such a basic game with a simple and uninspired visual, the game's frame rate has a tendency to drop and even crash at times. The narrative portion of the game is an odd mixture of creepy and cringeworthy as poorly crafted 3D models stand there staring at each other without emotion in their vacant eyes that clearly show there is no soul, while mediocre voice work plays over this scene. Just what exactly did they spend all their money on anyway? Mighty Number 9 is bad not only as a game, it also tarnished the reputation of video gaming crowdfunding as a whole. Number 7, Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia. We know that stealth has always been a key mechanic throughout the main Assassin's Creed titles, but Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia takes this mechanic to downright cruel levels. Though fighting has always been an option in the series and continues to be in this game, that doesn't necessarily mean you do it. Assassin Nikolai Orev has glass bones and paper skin, as it takes way too much effort to put your enemies down and almost no effort at all for them to end you. It often takes as much as one hit to make Nikolai requiescante pace. While Nikolai is granted defensive abilities, their effectiveness is essentially a coin flip, even when used in the right place at the right time. You're probably thinking to yourself, then just don't engage the enemies. But that would insinuate the game is actually fair, random commenter. Oftentimes, it is next to impossible to pick up on the movements and patterns in enemy guards and how you should sneak past them. So the easiest option is to take numerous leaps of faith and experiment. Live, die, watch the loading screen, and repeat until you find the painfully subtle way around your foes. The game game does feature sequences not devoted to stealth, like levels devoted to endlessly running that will make you wish you were still playing the stealth missions. Not only must you keep running in order to avoid deadly threats behind you, you must attempt to avoid absurdly quick obstacles from the front that can screw you over time and time again. What doesn't help is that this game is beautiful to look at, which in and of itself becomes an obstacle when playing these fast-paced sections. Spare the controller the inevitable toss against the wall and skip this infuriating experience. Number 6. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutants in Manhattan. All the pieces appear to be in place upon looking at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutants in Manhattan at first glance. It features an appealing cel-shaded art style reminiscent of the TMNT comics. All seems well, and then the actual gameplay occurs. First off, it's a game created for the 8th generation that doesn't seem to run above 30 frames per second. Second, and even worse, the frame rate consistently drops, which is odd because the developers claim to have scrapped the local multiplayer so the game could run more smoothly. Mutants in Manhattan is also repetitive in just about every way possible. A majority of the game's encounters can be easily overcome by hitting the bad guys with random combinations of basic light and heavy attacks, while the objectives are limited to kill all the bad guys, disarm the bombs while killing the bad guys, defend the enemy territory while killing the bad guys, and take weapons from the bad guys. That is after you kill them. If you're not playing with friends online, your turtle brothers will be controlled by some of the most incompetent AI ever conceived. And you know some of the horrible games out there, so you're probably wondering what we mean by that. Well, let's explain. They are flat out rebellious. Commands you issue mean nothing. Absolutely nothing to them, as they go about doing whatever they believe is best, which could lead to anything from standing in a corner doing nothing, to ganging up on a single enemy that they just some reason seem to hate. You're definitely better off playing with 3 complete strangers, and you know who's on the internet. On the bright side, the game's boss battles are quite entertaining, but they're way too uncommon to be worth traversing the painfully long levels for. In truth, this game can be easily completed in 3 to 4 hours, but the fact that its gameplay is more like a chore makes it feel like an eternity. Number 5, Bombshell. This game wins the award for most honest title on our list, and for a good reason. You may be thinking, oh golly gee, this looks like Diablo, but with guns. How could that be a bad thing? First of all, don't you dare insult Diablo like that. I will find you. 2, Bombshell takes out everything that's fun about dungeon crawlers. These dungeons are nothing more than linear hallways with little to no branching paths, meaning there's absolutely no exploration involved. This is especially troublesome when you take into consideration that the most common side quests in the game are the totally groundbreaking tasks of finding 3 keys to open a door. Woo! Or finding lost soldiers over and over and over and over again. The game has a pretty diverse arsenal, actually, featuring 8 different weapons you can acquire throughout the game. Unfortunately, a majority of these weapons are severely underpowered, and on top of that, finding ammo for these supposedly more powerful weapons can be quite rare, so you'll be using your underpowered default weapons a majority of the time. This will then result in long, drawn-out battles against the same 4 enemy types that inhabit every corner of this uninspired experience. The game truly becomes an experience forged in hell when you take on the game's bosses. Not only are they capable of one-hit kills, but their fights are long and drawn out with no checkpoints. The developers truly went out of their way to make every aspect of this game irritating, especially when they gave Shelly as many catchphrases as Buzz Lightyear. By the end of the first level, you'll have heard "How many aliens does it take to screw in a light bulb?" so many times you'll likely mute the game, or spare yourself the pain and just stop playing. Number 4, Homefront: The Revolution. Homefront: The Revolution is an open-world first-person shooter in which the enemies are so advanced they've developed the ability to disappear and reappear at will. Wait, no? Oh, no, that's not an ability. That's just a lack of polish and bug testing on the developer's part. In fact, there are a lot of those that are bound to make your experience frustrating. A choppy frame rate makes shooting at enemies with anything other than explosives a royal pain. Bad checkpoints will cause you to respawn in front of enemies with your weapons lowered, giving them just enough time to kill you again and again until you reload a previous save file. And if you don't have a previous save file, well, sucks to be you. Variety isn't exactly this game's strong suit. The Revolution's campaign can be summed up as such. Take some explosives, blow up whatever it is the Resistance wants you to torch, inspire the oppressed with your justified terrorism, play a cliche-ridden story mission or 2, and move on to the next district of the city to do it all over again until either the end credits roll or the more likely scenario in which you just get bored and delete the game from your hard drive. Just do yourself a solid, and if you're looking for this kind of gameplay, pop in Far Cry instead. Number 3, Umbrella Corps. With everyone burning Konami at the stake, mistake for turning the Metal Gear series into a survival horror game, we thought you should know about another instance in which a gaming giant slapped a popular brand name into a half-assed pile of garbage that they claimed was, quote, part of your favorite franchise expanded universe, end quote. Everybody point your pitchforks towards Capcom for creating Resident Evil's spin-off, Umbrella Corps. Calling this a spin-off of Resident Evil is clearly a cash grab. Umbrella Corps added practically nothing to the Resident Evil canon as a whole. However, you could bring the experience closer to Resident Evil by unlocking characters like Chris Redfield and Leon Kennedy for an additional $15. If those flags weren't red enough to deter you, then get ready for 24 missions of hell that recycle the same few maps again and again and again and again. The mission types are especially bland. The most common assignment you'll encounter is the classic find and collect the items mission found in just about every game ever made. The game's core mechanics are also pretty ass backwards as well, making it the default Dan of third-person shooters. Cover is of no help when fighting zombies because, well, they're mindless, weaponless zombies that will just run right past it and consume your beautiful face. Cover means nothing against armed opponents in multiplayer as well. Aiming from a third-person perspective is much more effective than aiming down the sights, which will greatly compromise your movement speed, while crawling on your stomach prone will make you move pretty quickly. Umbrella Corps seems like more of an experiment to see how easily Capcom could destroy the psychology of a shooter player. Number 2, Alekhines Gun. Alekhines Gun was intended to be centered around taking out targets primarily using stealth-based tactics. In reality, you can be as loud and as unsubtle as a marching band and accomplish your goals with relative ease. The AI is just that terrible. All of your targets appear to suffer from short-term memory loss. You can afford to be seen by them without consequence so long as you simply turn tail and hide behind the nearest wall for a few seconds until the target completely forgets their near-death experience and continues about their day. Jeez, at least when Finding Dory did it, it was adorable. Even if you encounter the occasional AI competent enough to follow and hunt you down, you can simply enter a room and shut the door to completely discourage your foe and drive them away. You can even stand directly behind your target and repeatedly miss the finishing blow over and over without them even noticing, allowing you as many chances as you need to successfully take them out. This simplicity negates other mechanics meant to help you complete your mission, like the use of disguises. Who needs soldier garb when you've got a wooden door? As a result, Alekhines Gun is a relatively easy experience with little to no challenge at all. There isn't much else beyond that aside from huge, barren city environments and a bland story told through a still image slideshow with voiceovers that sound like they were done in a busy office with a built-in computer microphone. Maybe you can find some appeal in the game's absurd amount of bugs, from being sucked into the floor and falling into a bottomless abyss, or feeling like a Jedi by strangling your foe to death without even having to touch them. You're sure to have a laugh or two, but humor doesn't quite justify a $40 purchase. All we can say is YouTube gameplay is your friend. And number 1, Ghostbusters. 2016 hasn't been a great year for the Ghostbusters franchise, with mixed reviews on the latest Sony Pictures and director Paul Feig reboot that led to some ugly online trolling of its actresses. Come on, guys. Leave it to Activision to add fuel to the Ghostbusters dumpster fire by releasing a little disaster titled Ghostbusters. Put simply, this game is purely a cash grab, even more so than Umbrella Corps from earlier. It's so generic and bland that you could literally take any property in existence, place it atop this piece of garbage, and it would still be the exact same thing. Despite having the Ghostbusters logo slapped on the cover, it lacks the heart and soul of the beloved franchise, throwing out its iconic silverware humor and replacing it with cringeworthy one-liners. The Ghostbusters' traditional tools have been tossed aside in favor of straight-up shooting the paranormal with proton shotguns and miniguns. There is barely anything connecting it to the franchise's lore as a whole, aside from some brief offhanded mention of, quote, those girls, inspiring this new team of Ghostbusters consisting of such memorable characters such as... actually, they don't get names. They don't have names, personality, chemistry, or character development. Way to give females a chance, guys. They are nothing more than virtual avatars made to represent your presence in the game. The gameplay mechanics are a copy and paste of every other twin-stick shooter you have ever played, with no twists or interesting modifications that would make it stand out. Ghostbusters presents little to no challenge at all, with the same underpowered and generic enemies popping up over and over as you mow them down with your seemingly endless supply of proton shells. And there's little to no penalty for death, as a teammate can revive you to full health at no cost. Why put effort into a compelling video game if the developers put minimal effort into creating it? I know who I'm not gonna call this year. Sorry, Ghostbusters. Once again, I am Kyle Stover, and you made it through the 9 worst games of 2016. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Which ones made you question your faith in the gaming industry? Is there a game we missed? Leave a comment below and warn your fellow gamers. If you like this video, check out some of our other ones by clicking the links in the description. We have new videos dropping every week, so let us know what game you want us to cover next. And if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to The Leaderboard, where we help you game smarter.